Today on TimesCast, as rebels flee a strategic town, France formally recognizes Libya's opposition as the legitimate government. In the U.S., a House panel holds hearings on the threat of domestic Islamic fundamentalism.
There is nothing radical or un-American in holding these hearings.
This hearing today is playing into al-Qaeda.
Los Angeles' sheriff testifies on his department's success in Muslim community outreach. And at the center of the controversy is Committee Chairman Peter King. We visit his New York district.
I just returned from a speech delivered by Saif al-Islam al-Qaddafi, the son of Muammar al-Qaddafi. His message to the rebels in the east part of the country coming to oust his father was, we're coming. They are determined, they say, to march on Benghazi, the rebel headquarters. They appear to have taken over the city of Ras Lanouf, which the rebels had held on their march up the coast. In other news, the government of France recognized the rebels as the true government of Libya. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton in Washington said that she was going to be meeting with the rebels to talk about how to support them.
We are standing with the Libyan people as they brave bombs and bullets to demand that Gaddafi must go now.
As we tried to make our way around Tripoli here today, we visited a school where one brave 14-year-old girl went out of her way to tell us just what it had been like. She said it had been terrifying, that she had seen mercenaries outside her door, had been unable to sleep because of all the gunfire in the air, and said that even some of her teachers were not fully down with the Gaddafi party line.
I am well aware that the announcement of these hearings has generated considerable controversy and opposition.
This was a big day for Congressman Peter King of New York. He's been planning these hearings on the radicalization of American Muslims and the homegrown terror threat for weeks, under intense criticism, and throughout the day he stood his ground.
To back down would be a craven surrender to political correctness and an abdication of what I believe to be the main responsibility of this committee.
It was a packed room. People waited hours in line to get into the small, crowded committee hearing room. There were reporters, camera people, people of all religious faiths, law enforcement officials, civil rights advocates, all listening to some very emotional testimony. At one point, Congressman Keith Ellison, one of two Muslim members of Congress, broke down in tears as he described a young man, a Muslim firefighter who died on 9/11 at the World Trade Center.
Mohammed Salman Hamdani was a fellow American who gave his life for other Americans.
What emerged was two competing portraits of American Muslims. One kind of an uplifting vision of those who are law-abiding citizens who serve their country, want to cooperate with law enforcement officials, and then a darker portrait of Muslims who are not confronting radicalization within their own community and who are refusing to acknowledge what one witness called the cancer within.
Let me be clear and state up front that unequivocally for the record that the U.S. has a significant problem with Muslim radicalization. You know, listen, I'm Muslim, and I realize it's my problem, and I need to fix it, and that's what I'm trying to do.
This is just the first of what Congressman King has said will be a number of hearings. He also wants to explore radicalization inside prisons and the flow of foreign money into mosques. It's unclear what the effect will be, but going forward, the debate will continue here in the halls of Congress and out in the country.
Evidence clearly indicates a general rise of violent extremism across ideologies. Therefore, we should be examining radicalization as an issue that affects all groups, regardless of religion.
Los Angeles County Sheriff Lee Baca testified before the committee about his efforts to engage the Muslim community.
In Los Angeles, home of one of the largest and most diverse Muslim populations in the country, the Sheriff's Department is making a priority of forging connections with Muslims.
In the minority communities, there's always been this fear and suspicion of the police. Do Muslims help law enforcement locally with general crime? Yes. Do Muslims help law enforcement with terrorist plots? Yes. When they feel comfortable that they can trust the police, sharing early indicators of violent extremism is going to happen.
As part of their outreach, a small unit of Muslim officers visit mosques and cultivate relationships with community leaders. The result? Hundreds of tips about suspicious activities.
The plots that have been uncovered and foiled, 40% have involved Muslim American informants. In the last 10 plots, 7 of them were the results of Muslim Americans providing vital information to the authorities.
Sheriff Baca says reaching out to all communities and making allies is just good policing.
There's no evidence that The Muslim faith cannot be trusted. Extremists come from all faiths and all beliefs, and together is what it'll take to fight terrorism.
Some groups have criticized Congressman King for calling the hearings, but when reporter Corey Kilgannon visited constituents in Mr. King's New York district, he seemed to have support.
We're here today on Long Island in the congressional district of Peter King. We're talking to some of his constituents about how they feel about his policies on Muslim Americans and the congressional hearings on the radicalization of Muslims in America. I grew up here, and it's a mostly white district, working class. There aren't that many Muslims. There are a lot of New York City firefighters and police officers, and it's an area that felt the effects of 9/11 very deeply.
I agree with what he's doing. I mean, there are good Arabs in the world, but he's the head of Homeland Security, and he's trying to protect the country. So I agree with his views. He's trying to safeguard not only this area, he's trying to safeguard the entire country.
I think you should step on as many toes as you need to and definitely take a good look at it. I mean, we can't forget 9/11, right? There you go.
This is a middle, upper class neighborhood, and a lot of people had firefighters that they lost. I mean, even myself, I had my cousin's entire company was wiped out. Statistically speaking, Muslims are the number one source for terrorist attacks in the world, and it has been since the beginning of time.
And it isn't fair. Unfortunately, the culture that we live in today allows that to happen, and I think everybody's got to be on their guard and be looking for something. I think he's doing a great job. And some people may think he's a little bit over the top. I think you're not over the top enough. I think you should stay right on top of everything. And he's the guy that's doing it. Like it or not.
Join us again tomorrow for TimesCast.